Welcome to Vote 2017. I'm Teresa Whipple, and today we are here with George Hurst, who is running for mayor of the city of Lynnwood. George, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk today about a variety of issues facing the city, but first, why don't you tell the voters about yourself and why you're running?
Sure. I have a real interest in Lynnwood and what's going on in there. I have served on the Planning Commission, and that really kind of stirred me into thinking about running for elective office, because during that time when I was on Planning Commission, we were able to go over the comprehensive plan of the city, had to go chapter by chapter, so we spent 2 years discussing that, and I really learned a lot about the city. And I have a friend who ran for office, and by golly, I kind of enjoyed helping them, and so I thought, well, you know, if the opportunity is open, I think I might try it. So I did run for city council, and I did win a couple of years ago, and it's been really fascinating. But I think through the process, I've learned that maybe there's some things that can be changed for the better for the city, and so that's why I'm interested in moving forward and running for mayor.
Okay, very good. And what are the top 3 issues you would focus on if you are elected?
The top one is going to be the new biennium budget. That process is going to start right in 2018. So it's the 2019-20 budget, but it really takes a year to develop it. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to actually budget for outcomes. And that's a phrase that's been used in the city. And it really is where we try to find out citizen priorities and then work them into the budget. And we weren't able to do it in this go-round. And so what I would do is in January really start creating citizen task force that they could look at issues, and these task force or focus groups would come up with suggestions on what the cities want to do. And then after a few months, say in April, we get together with the department directors, the department heads, and we start talking about, this is what the citizens want, how does this fit into what you think should happen? And it's a collaborative effort, and I think it's something that we lacked in this last budget cycle, and we really need it. So that would be really my top priority. Second priority really goes along with the budget, is to make sure we don't spend more in the city than what comes in as far as revenue. And for me, that's very important. And then the third priority is I would really like to develop more as far as the police community services. We do have a great start, and we have a great sergeant, Cole Langdon. We've seen him on right here.
I know Cole well.
Yeah, and I'd like to develop that program a lot more than what it is right now.
Okay, very good. So we were talking a little bit before about sound transit, because it seems like all the cities that I've been observing have been dealing with the light rail coming in. Of course, Lynnwood is going to be a prime endpoint for that for a while. And there have been a lot of changes that have already happened to kind of accommodate that. And of course, Sound Transit recently announced that they're 6 months behind and $500 million over budget, and now they're looking at some possible changes. And you know, what has been as a council member, what has been your experience in working with Sound Transit? How do you feel like the city should be dealing with that issue moving forward?
Yeah. Sound Transit sometimes is a challenge. As we learned, they came into Lynnwood and actually had an open house at the convention center to show us what the new station was going to look like. And hey, let's name the station. And they even had a model of the station. And then when it came to actually starting to get permits for that station, we found out they were trying to value engineer, cut costs to that station, and it started to change. And I mean, that did get stopped, and they had to rethink how some of their divisions work, because they did find out, I think, that there's a difference between the planning division and then when it goes to the construction division, they're different people, and they have different thoughts, and things change without telling the planning people, you know. And so I think we need to make sure that Sound Transit keeps on track, you know. And it just, boy, some of the costs are just, you think about, well, the new parking garage in Kent, now they're talking about $100,000 per space. Can't they do better, you know? And so I think we really have to be careful with them. I do know our permitting people are working with them directly as far as that process. And I think that's good, because we do need our folks in there to make sure that, like this station now, it appears it's going to be the end of the line for quite a while. Who knows about ST3? You know, we're getting resistance federally, we're getting resistance tax-wise through, you know, the tab, the uproar about the tabs, and the costs are starting to really impact people. And so who knows what about ST3 is going to happen. But ST2 is going to happen, and that includes Lynnwood. So we will have that station. And I just want to make sure that Sound Transit stays on track, but also that the city is ready. And I think part of that is we have to make sure, you know, the roads that are leading to the station are reinforced and built, because we're going to have buses rolling in that we never had before on streets, you know. And then there's been studies as far as the walkability around the transit station, and our sidewalks are not the best, and so that is going to have to happen. So we have to be ready to fund those, and you know. But I think it's going to be exciting. It's kind of funny because in this transition period, it's going to look like Lynnwood is losing stores, and you know, Black Angus is closing, and that furniture
Seems like
store
every
is
day
closing.
I hear of
That's
another
right.
store closing.
And there seem
yeah.
to be empty spaces, but that's all part of the transition, and it will be better. You know, it really will.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and related to that, of course, that whole area. Talked a little bit with several people about kind of, and you and I think spoke about this 2 years ago, you know, the fact that Lynnwood has kind of had this lack of identity, you know, it's like there's no city center, there's no downtown core, there's the mall, but, you know, what is Lynnwood? And do you see the transit center eventually kind of contributing to that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Identity?
It really will. And we have really great people within planning and development. And we did get a grant from the federal government, and they showed us, well, yes, you have a city center plan, and it's, you know, kind of a east-west plan. But they pointed out that with City Hall and the library and the fire station, we really have a nice complex there. And so they were suggesting perhaps we focus on 44th as a walkability, with its walkability, and you know, the other part will come. It may be a decade away, you know, but it will come. But maybe we look at that. But yes, no, the transit center is will be an important part, you know, and we just have to make sure that we focus the growth within that city center section. You know, we have single-family resident neighborhoods that we need to make sure are protected. But that station will be important.
There's going to be a lot of change coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of change, let's talk about another issue we talked about a couple of years ago, which is, you know, kind of the whole diversity issue with Lynnwood. And, you know, always, of course, a great thing, but presents some challenges in terms of communication and just government outreach. You've been on the council a couple of years now. How do you see that going, and what do you think could be better in terms of that process?
No, we are becoming a very much more of a diverse city, and that's, you know, and that's great. But we need to make sure that we reach out to these populations, and that they feel safe. And sometimes within the political atmosphere that's going on, sometimes that's tough. You know, we have ICE. We do not have an ICE office, even though people thought we did.
In Lynnwood?
In Lynnwood,
Oh, okay.
yeah, there was a rumor. You know,
Right.
and at one time there was, but no longer. And we have a ability to use some of the commissions within the city. You know, we had a diversity commission, and it hadn't met for almost 2 years now, but that was personalities, things were happening there that it just wasn't maybe the best, you know, and we tried to encourage, you know, perhaps we could rebuild it, could we do that? And it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And so now we do have a new diversity commission that just met, and I have high hopes for that, and I hope that they will be able to advise the council and the mayor on how to really reach the populations that are coming into the city.
Okay, good. Let's talk a little bit about affordable housing. When you talk about, you know, having, we have a lot of multifamily housing in Lynnwood already, and I know there is some affordable housing being built and almost finished there right along the freeway.
Yeah.
But do you think that the city is doing a pretty good job right now of providing some affordable housing? Is there more that needs to be done?
I think there's a lot more that can be done. And we actually are in a great position because with the transit station coming, the light rail and everything, development will happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So we can start setting some policies. Bellevue just did a great study on affordable housing and how to develop it within their city. And it's not just building the housing, it's having programs that people can stay in their houses, or creating programs where helping first-time buyers, you know, and a lot of this is on the state level, but there are ways to do that. And I think that we could set policies to make sure that affordable housing volume grows. I know we have a SHAG facility, but really, as far as low income, there aren't that many units within that SHAG facility that is, quote, low income. And we have the workforce apartment that is being built on, 196, right across from the convention center. And we had another senior housing that burned up.
Right, that is going to be rebuilt,
it's going to be rebuilt,
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, we just have to expand that concept, and I would be interested in setting policies so that when developers come in, they do set aside some of the units, you know, or we look at adjustable rates, things like that, you know.
Yeah.
But we're in a good position, I think, to set those policies before things are built right now.
Yeah, okay. And related to that, and you mentioned a little bit about police, kind of getting the police more engaged with some of these kinds of issues, but my understanding is that Lynnwood is getting a social worker that will work with the police, and part of that is to do outreach to people who are you know, homeless or have other issues. What do you think, is there anything more, any ideas you have for addressing that issue? Because certainly all the cities in South Snohomish County are starting to see more of that.
Yeah, they really are. And, you know, that social worker, we're going to share with Edmonds.
With Edmonds,
I think it's a third.
Yeah.
You know, now we did have another social worker that had been funded through the YWCA, but she left and just recently, and didn't complete her term there. But you know, in talking with her, I think there's a lot of frustration for her because she could help people to a point, you know, but then when it came to, well, let's find you a place to stay, or let's you know, even find you a detox bed, the resources aren't there, and that's a concern. You know, the city can do so much, but it's almost it's a regional thing.
It's a regional thing.
It really is. And you know, the state, as far as mental health, did us no favors in really cutting back. And so now, Lynnwood does have a detox facility, 16 bed, because now that's what the state limits people as far as those type of facilities, just because they want the care to be appropriate. So we have 16 beds. Everett has 16 beds. That's 32 beds. That's it for the county. And so these essential facilities, other cities need to step up, you know. And I would hope, like Edmonds and you know, Montlake Terrace and even Briar, you know, the south, we could build in South Snohomish County enough beds to take care of people. Because I work with a lot of the homeless groups around as far as helping them, and there's one fantastic kind of boots on the ground group called the Hands Up Project. And this is headed up by a former addict. He's clean, and he gets people clean. And then their focus is to actually go out to the homeless, find folks who are ready to they want to get rid of the heroin addiction and stuff. And they will take them to appointments. They will take them to the doctor. But again, their frustration is, okay, we've got these people ready, but the beds aren't there, and we need a transition place for them, because if they stay in their environment, that readiness disappears pretty quick if you're with your old cronies and friends and such, you know. So I think helping those type of groups is essential for the city, and I guess my concern is I want the city to have enough funds to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, one of the reasons I'm running too.
Right,
Yeah.
right. All fits together.
Yeah.
Another issue that I know I've seen you weigh in on at various times is the Regional Fire Authority that was recently approved by voters. I know there was some concern by some that it meant losing the Lynnwood Fire Department, and
Right.
there were concerns there. Talk to me a little bit about what you're thinking about that whole issue and how you see it coming to fruition now that it's been approved.
Yeah, now that's been approved. Well, I was chair of the RFA Planning Commission. And, you know, so I helped create that plan. And there were some things I wish we could have included in there, and we didn't. But in the end, for 2 years, basically, I've studied fire service. And I've learned a lot. And one of the things that has really changed fire service in this area is the New World 911 system.
yeah.
You know, it's GPS driven. It's no longer stations don't have grids of where they go. It's more, well, wherever the unit is, they respond if they're closest to the call. And so one day I rode with Engine 15 in Lynnwood just to see how things went. So they went on 4 calls, and 3 of them were in Montlake Terrace. And you know, and one of them was a natural gas, and there was no leak there. But then there's an 8 call in Montlake Terrace, but because the Lynnwood Fire Department was closest, we responded to that. So it's become a universal
Yes,
type of fire
yes.
service. You know.
Yeah.
And the only thing on the RFA that I'd be concerned about is it is going to be an extra property tax for the RFA, and we just have to make sure we've committed. I have, and I think we've got enough council members committed that we're going to reduce taxes in Lynnwood to make it revenue neutral as far as the taxpayers.
Yeah,
And it's
because-
important to do that.
Yeah, I know that's something that I remember when a lot of the cities were talking about doing an RFA, and one of the concerns that people brought up was that it's going to probably end up with a tax increase, and
Yeah.
that was why they didn't move forward with it.
That's
It
right.
was
Right.
a concern, so
Yep.
that's interesting. Okay. So talking about your time on the council for the last 2 years, what would you point to as your most, the accomplishment that you're the most proud of?
That's a good one. You know, I think rather than one accomplishment, I think it's
I'll let you have 2.
no, I think I will do a trend, a tendency.
trend. There you go.
Yes. I try, I think it's most important to be as upfront as we can and as transparent as we can. And sometimes we put, things get put on a consent agenda, which means there is no discussion really, it's just passed, you know. And I've tried to maybe pull some of those issues off. I know that, you know, Meadowdale playfields with crumb rubber being installed, you know, that's a hot button issue.
It was, yes.
And we would never have discussed it if I hadn't asked, you know, what was going on. And yeah, I met for a couple long council
Yeah.
meetings,
Yeah.
you know, and eventually it was approved with the crumb rubber. But at least we vetted that. We were able to let people know that, you know, we are aware of what's going on, and you know, we just want to make sure that any issue that's brought forth has a good discussion,
Right.
you know, full discussion.
Well, transparency is
Yeah.
real important, and I think that's, you know, I agree. That happens with a lot of cities, is that things end up on the consent agenda unless a council member chooses to bring them forward.
Yeah,
So,
and so we're just want to make sure
okay.
everybody knows
All right,
what's going on.
Very good. Okay. Well, one other quick question, and then we'll get on to the part where you can talk to the voters about why they should vote for you.
Okay.
How do you think that Lynnwood's doing in terms of its outreach to families? Do you think they have basically a family, you would consider it a family-friendly city, things they could do better?
I think it is, there's we're trying to figure out right now, what do we do with events,
Fair on 44th was great.
Fair on 44th, that was a big hit last
Yeah.
year, and I think it's a great event. And I would like to see actually more of that type of a thing. Because the more that people, I think, can relate to what's going on in the city and be engaged, then they are going to be more involved. And I think that's best for the family. I mean, we're trying to make it a more walkable city. And I think that, with kids and families, the more they're out and active, the better. So, no, I think we're getting there.
Okay.
I do.
Great. Very good. Well, now is your opportunity to directly address the voters and tell them why they should vote for you. So
All right.
please do that.
Okay, thank you. 2 years ago, when I was elected to the city council, I just thought that I would be the best council member I could for 4 years. No intention of running for mayor. But I think during the most recent budget process and what I observed in the previous budget process, I really became concerned about that. And I think we need to, what I want to see, like I discussed earlier, is a more open process, one where we have a lot of citizen engagement. Right now, taxes are a big issue. We have the RFA taxes. Right now, we haven't done anything yet to try to help the citizens in Lynnwood not be double taxed, and we're going to do that. And then what I've learned, I think, through doorbelling during my campaign, is that there is a real unrest and impact about what's going on with government. Can we trust ST3? We can't trust them. Can we trust you? And I just think that we really need to be careful on how we spend the citizens' money. And one person in particular I remember when I was doorbelling was a 70-year-old gentleman who had been born in Edmonds, lived in the Lynnwood area all his life, owns a home, and his concern is that he's being taxed out of his home, and that he's really seriously considering moving to a different area and maybe even out of state. And I think that's really not the type of Lynnwood I want to live in. I want one where people feel secure, that they know they can trust their government. And, I think it's fair to ask, where's the money going? What's happening? I believe that I need your help to be able to create a government and administration that will listen to people and will be careful not to spend more than what the revenue comes in. And so that's why I asked for your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
George Hurst, thank you so much for coming in.
Sure.
It was great to see you,
Thank
and
you.
best of luck in November.
All right, appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right.